to In the Arena. I'm your host, Mindy McAlindon. Joining us today in the arena is Sara Lynn Geiger. She's the director of the Rogers-Lowell Area Chamber. She's here to talk to us about business growth, community development, and what's next for Northwest Arkansas. Sara Lynn serves as the Vice President of Governmental Affairs for the Rogers Chamber. She leads the Chamber's advocacy efforts and works closely with business and governmental leaders. Prior to joining the Chamber, Sara Lynn spent several years in the Florida House of Representatives as legislative aide, supporting education and tax policy. She is passionate about connecting people, policy, and community. So let's talk to Sara. Welcome to In the Arena.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here, Sara Lynn. So why don't we start a little bit with your background, because you have such an interesting background. So take us back to Florida. Tell us what you did there.
Yeah, absolutely. My political career got started in college. I was very passionate about an issue known as anti-human trafficking. In little college, Sara Lynn was out and trying to educate people on what that was. And I came in contact with a local county commissioner in Orlando for Orange County. And he was like, hey, there's something about you. You've got a spark and you seem very passionate. Let's talk. And led into my first internship. And from there, interned on the county level, went from county level to state level, and found my roots there.
That is fantastic. Tell me more about what you did in Florida as legislative aide, because it was fascinating. When I first met you when you moved here, how many years ago now? 3?
3, yeah.
3 years ago. Okay, so you had moved here from Florida, but you did some amazing stuff in Florida with the governor there and with the legislative body. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a big piece of my time in Florida, I worked for the chair of the education committee. That was my first assignment, was going and helping her, prepping her. During that time period, we were doing quite a bit in school choice initiatives. And so worked heavily in that space. And then we also did some things regarding school safety and just a myriad of things within the education space during my first 2 years with the Florida House of Representatives. Then I transitioned to help the Ways and Means chair. And so at the time, it has since gone up, but at the time we actually worked and passed one of the largest tax back packages for citizens of the state of Florida. And I was so happy and pleased to be part of that team who worked on that legislation, got it through the finish line, and was able to definitely positively impact Florida residents.
Yeah, and you were such a great resource when you first moved here. You hit the ground running with the chamber, but more importantly for me is you really connected with the legislative body up in Northwest Arkansas and brought all that information on taxes, on school choice to us to help us as we were just starting to hit school choice as the issue for that legislative session. So
Yes.
it's really big resource for sure. So tell me
It was
how you got
perfect
involved with
timing.
it was perfect. Well, God's got good timing, I have to say. So tell me how you made that transition from being a legislative aide and working on policy to moving to the chamber, because those are really different skill sets and very different places to work.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. So back to your point a little bit earlier, God's got perfect timing, and I'm an individual of faith, and it kind of goes back into that. Me and my husband had been married for about a year, and we did long distance marriage for a year, and so that was a bit challenging. And we decided we were praying on Florida, Arkansas, which one, what doors, just make it evidently known like what we need to do, and things lined up in a certain way, and we decided Arkansas was the place to be and where we wanted to raise our family. And so we made the jump, and through networking and different things that I was involved in as I was traveling up back and forth between Florida and here, was able to get very well connected to the community and got introduced to some folks at the chamber, heard a little bit more about what they were doing and how passionate they were about the community. And I was like, hey, like if there's an opportunity here, let's see what we can do with it. And there was. And so I was able to come on board about 3 years ago and hit the ground running, as you said. And it's been a roller coaster, but a very, very fun one.
Yeah. So let's kind of start with basics. Most people have heard of a
Yeah.
chamber. We know there's a chamber of commerce. What does a chamber do? Why does it exist?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, a chamber of commerce in its truest form is there to grow business and grow the local economy and be that connector for the community. At the Rogers-Lowell Chamber, we specifically approach it that we can't have world class businesses without world class people. And so that takes us being that convener in the community to be able to attract the people that are world class in order for the businesses to here to be able to thrive. And so we want to attract young talent, maintain the talent that's here, and just continue that growing in that space to allow people to be able to live, work, and play.
That's great. And you have really kind of amped up what the chamber's done. I think that you have made more connections and really just kind of partnership with the legislature, but also with the community. So can you talk about maybe a couple of success stories or your first couple success stories where you've really kind of jumped in and got started and felt like, oh, I made a difference already?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So some big pieces, there's been a lot, but I think one of my favorite things whenever I first got here, as I mentioned earlier, education was kind of one of the things that got me started in the Florida legislature. And so I knew with the new governor coming in and everything that education was going to be a big topic. And so I was like, hey, let's lean into this. Let's figure out our space and what we can do. And so I think I started in September, and by goodness, middle of October, beginning of November, or it was after the election. So it was end of November. I was able to organize a tour for one of our local schools alongside our school district and our school board and our superintendent, and kind of educate on what was going on existing in our school district, but more specifically with our career technical education space, and just kind of showing them, hey, here's what we're seeing, here's what we're witnessing, but let's kind of figure out if we're going to be talking about education, this is a really key component for us and for our workforce and continuing to develop that workforce. So what can we do to lean in? What are some missing pieces? And let's have a conversation on the front end so you guys are prepared on the as you enter into session.
Yeah, and
That was probably
that
one of
was
my
very
favorite
helpful.
items.
Yeah. No, it was great. And you've continued to help us to get educated, be on the forefront of issues throughout the session and then after session as well, which I'm very grateful for. So let me ask you this. You mentioned a little bit about workforce and needs. Let's talk about how is the chamber preparing for so many changes that are coming when it comes to workforce needs, housing, infrastructure, as the region continues to grow. Is that something the chamber is involved in intimately?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is day in, day out, what we do all the time. We're talking about it constantly. We're having meetings about it constantly. But one of the big things that we strive to be are influencers, catalysts, and conveners. And that can mean a variety of different things. But to us, we believe it's our job to bring people together and bring the decision makers together so that we all can have a candid conversation. We all can have a seat at the table so we can get to the root of what's going on. As you mentioned, we are fast growing and it is not slowing down by any stretch of the imagination.
It's
And
not.
so, some of the key issues that we are facing, you hear the housing, you hear childcare, you hear infrastructure, all of these things are very big and very broad. And, at times it can be overwhelming, especially for smaller businesses to kind of engage in that space. So we try to break it down and we want to make sure that no matter what size of your business, you have resources available to you to where you can engage in the conversation. And not only that, but also let us know how it's affecting you because it's going to affect everybody differently. And we need to have a well rounded perspective as we're moving forward to shape change.
So, what types of events do you do with businesses when you like in order to get them engaged, get them connecting to one another? What types of events do you actually do with them?
Absolutely. So we have a lot of events ranging from the traditional networking type events where if you want to come and you want to get connected and get plugged into other folks who are trying to get connected to the community, you can come do those types of things. In my specific space, we host a lot of roundtables, forums, and conversations. And depending on the topic, it varies a bit differently. But to your point earlier, with bringing in the legislature, one of the key things that we thought was very important, as the legislators are going into session, we'd love to host kind of a pre-breakfast and a post-breakfast. So on the front end of session, we like to have a group time where businesses can come in and chat with you all and hear, hey, here are my goals going into this legislative session. And then on the flip side, once legislative session is over and you guys have had a few moments to breathe, hosting another conversation and another breakfast so that you guys can come in and share, hey, here are the wins that we have, here are the things that we're still working on, but all in all, in an effort to continue the conversation so that people are aware of what you guys are doing.
So, Sara Lynn, let me ask you this. We are growing at such a rapid clip in Northwest Arkansas, and that's not just Rogers, right? That's Bentonville, Bella Vista, Centerton, Pea Ridge. Everywhere is growing so quickly, and each of those cities have their own chamber of commerce. So, do you work with those other chambers of commerce, or how do you coordinate that so that the area is growing in a way that is most beneficial to the whole
Absolutely.
area?
No, I'm so thankful that you asked this question because it's so, so important. A big topic of conversation amongst all of us is regionalism. And what does that look like for all of us to be working together and in cohesion so that, you know, we all benefit from it. The phrase that we always like to say is, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so it's important for all of us to be working together. We are all on the same team. And I think, in light of some of those things that we mentioned earlier, the housing, the childcare, the infrastructure, etc., all of those things isn't just specific to one area. It's far reaching and it's impacting more and more people. And so it requires all of us to be working together and being on the same page so that we can push for things in unison, in order to try and effectuate change. I think a really cool example of that happened actually earlier this week was the first ever in history. There was a joint quorum court meeting between Benton County and Washington County to kind of walk through and discuss the different challenges that we're facing. And that just is so encouraging to me to see not only are the chambers working together to try and advance the region, but now some of our government officials are also stepping into this space and having joint conversations because we know we're all in this boat together.
Yeah, and it is a wonderful
Yeah.
boat,
Yeah.
right? But it definitely it comes with its
It
challenges.
does.
So, how much does the chamber actually get involved in um, legislative changes, or at the city or the county level? How much does the chamber really get into those discussions?
Yeah, no. We have quite a few discussions all the time. That's the house that in which I live. So we have quite a few conversations, but honestly, it boils down to when we engage in these conversations to try to figure out is a legislative fix or some sort of act need to happen. Is it something that is a government thing that we need to be pushing for, or is it something that as a business community, is it something that we can just take on and pull up our bootstraps and figure out ourselves? I think that's kind of a big thing to figure out and to wave through. And a lot of these things, like the infrastructure things and things of that nature, it does require action. And so that's probably the biggest thing right now that we are facing, is just conversations with our infrastructure, because we are in a place where if we don't work together in order to figure out a solution to solve some of these issues, we're going to be in a world of hurt. And we are prosperous and we're continuing to be prosperous. But I do think there's something to be said about there being a point where it's like, okay, when will the goings get tough?
That's good. Well, I appreciate you being so diligent. And again, as I mentioned, it's a noticeable impact that you've made in terms of just trying to engage and stay ahead of those issues. And some of them are really hard to stay ahead of because they're coming at us so quickly up
Yeah,
here. It's a
absolutely.
great problem to have, I will say. So let me
It
ask you
is.
about
It
this.
is.
What
It's a
about
wonderful.
partnership? Yeah, it is. What about partnerships going forward? Do you have anything on the horizon, any regional partnerships or even across the state that you're working on that you're particularly excited about 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there are a few things that we have going through. One of the things that I'm very, very excited about, and I was actually part of the team that helped bring this to the state of Arkansas, and it's a space that we're dabbling in, is civic education and bringing awareness to our students on what does it mean to be civically engaged? What does it mean to understand that you have a place in your community and you have a voice in your community? And so, about goodness gracious, I think it's 2.5 years ago. This will be our third year this year. We brought the Civics Bee. There's a National Civics Bee program through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, and so it's for sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. And through a friend of mine, I was educated on this initiative a few years ago. I was like, hey, this sounds like a really cool space to be in, and this sounds like a great lane to try and figure out how to educate our students on how to be engaged. Let's bring it here. Let's figure out how it works. And we were the first chamber to do it in the state of Arkansas. And it's only grown from there. And so last year, our first year, we had probably, oh goodness, I think we had 22 students submit essays. It's for sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. They have to write a 500-word essay on what they see in their community and what they'd like to change within their community and where they see their place in that. And they all have to use civic principles in throughout the essay and throughout the process. And so just seeing that we had 20, 21, 22 kids the first year. Last year we had over 150 applications. And so just seeing that initiative grow, and it's actually grown across the state. Last year, I believe we had 5 regions that participated, and my understanding is it's only growing from there. So I'm really, really excited about that.
What do you think about when
Cool.
you look at the
Yep,
next five
that's fine.
years in Northwest Arkansas, and specifically with the Rogers Chambers? What do you think about it? What does it look like to you? What do you see as your vision for a successful look
Yeah.
like this to me over the next 5 years?
Yeah, no, I think that's a tough question, but a great question. I think that there's many things that I hope to see within the future. Um, our chamber has been around for 103 years, and I think has been an institution within the community in a variety of ways. And we are currently molding ourselves to be the chamber of the next generation, and what does that look like? And so being able to be part of those conversations and making sure that we continue to be that constant convener and collaborator to make sure we are reflecting not only what the business community needs but the community at large, so that again, we have those world class workers that live, work, and play within our community. I think that's only going to grow and expand. And I'm so excited to be part of something that allows for that opportunity and allows for us to engage in those conversations and dream big and figure out what's next for us and to run for it full force.
So, Sarah Lynn, one more question before I let you go. Can you just tell me what it looks like your legislative agenda for 2026? I know y'all are planning ahead. So, talk to me about what you think you've got coming up for legislation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's a whole host of things that we're talking through. We've got some things going on within the healthcare space that we're just kind of talking through as far as some things that are affecting our employers. And then obviously we have quite a few health related things going on in Northwest Arkansas. But outside of that, we're going to continue having that conversation on infrastructure and what does proper infrastructure investment look like. And then taking it a step further, we're always going to be those cheerleaders for CTE and career tech, and figuring out better ways to get our students educated and into the workforce. And so those are always going to be key components for us. And then making sure that we are enacting policies that benefit our businesses and make sure that they're able to employ folks at a great rate and make Arkansas successful.
That's great. Sarah Lynn, thank you so much for taking time to be here today. I really appreciate it. It's been great to talk to you about where you've been, but also what the great things are that are happening with Rogers Chamber and some of the great things we got coming up. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed our guest, Sara Lynn Geiger, today. She is the Vice President of Governmental Affairs for the Rogers-Lowell Chamber. And it's just been great to hear some of the work that she's doing to really connect people, policy, and our community. The Chamber does a lot of good work with large companies, but also with really small companies and startup companies to make sure that they are getting the resources that they need to thrive in Northwest Arkansas. So I also want to just give you a quick update. As you can see, I'm not in my normal location. I'm actually in the Denver airport today. I spent the last few days in the Dakotas as well as in Wyoming on a trip to learn a lot more about energy. We toured coal plants and power plants. We talked about CO2 sequestration, how CO2 can be used in different ways, and really the importance of energy. And as we all know, with the data centers that are coming, we are going to have a tremendous need for more energy. I've heard it said that of all the energy that we have right now, data centers will take up 99% of energy that's created right now in America. And so it's really important that we stay ahead of what's going on with energy to make sure that Arkansas is on the cutting edge of our power plants, whether they're coal or natural gas or even nuclear, and moving forward, also looking at what we can do with alternative energy such as solar and wind. So anyways, more to come about that. We'll have a guest in a couple of weeks who'll talk to us more about the energy policies within Arkansas, and I look forward to sharing that with you. So thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you next week in the arena.